has cost you your strength. Victory has defeated you.
I don't advise and I don't criticize. I just know what I like with my own eyes. That's a line from a Depeche Mode song I like. Like my other videos, this one is also not a call to action, unless of course you want it to be for yourself. It's just an observation. Anyway, you might have seen this meme. It's a pretty good explanation of a pattern or potential pattern of societal evolution and devolution. And today we seem to be at this point. Our technological progress, born from a strength of mind or kind of focused yet narrow intelligence, now has us on the cusp of even intellectual and artistic labor becoming fully automated. It was one thing for mechanization and robotics to replace hard manual labor. We didn't really want to have to do that kind of work to live anyway. But it's another thing for sophisticated arrays of computer prompts to replace physically light, fulfilling, creative work. While industrial mechanization removed or eased a lot of the hard, boring jobs of necessity that people wouldn't otherwise do, AI is now competing for the soft, creative jobs that people otherwise might still do. Be it the mundane or the sublime, most everything is in the crosshairs of Progress version 4.0. And what's being done about all of this? Global leadership, or basically corporations that have long since melted into government, are publicly saying, let's see what happens. These people may or may not know where this road takes us, but even if they do, they're not about to share their conclusions with the masses.
Carry on!
So what do you do? How do you prepare in the face of an increasingly unpredictable, undefined future? I don't know. But I think everyone can start by asking what they can bring to the table for themselves, by themselves. Because before anyone can be responsible for anyone else, they first have to be able to do stuff beyond eating and watching. Watching and eating. And a lot of us already can. But a lot of us already can't. And that's a problem quietly begging for a million different customized solutions. And among them will be the singular need for more, knowing more, doing more, and being more. And we've got to stop expecting other people and institutions to give us more, because judging by the trends we're seeing, they're not going to. This isn't bad news or good news, it's just news. Whether it's good or bad will depend on how we consider it and how we respond.
The choice is yours.
You can get with this, or you can get with that. You can get with this, or you can get with that. You can get with this.
Traditional media is presenting us a false choice to continue to either A, devolve by doubling down with more cheats, tools, and shortcuts, or B, to get left behind. The first choice basically means becoming even more dependent on a system that every day, either by accident or design, tends to make us lesser, weaker versions of ourselves. But instead of completely shunning new tech, or mindlessly integrating it, how about a continued but conscious use of it, coupled with a healthy amount of real skills development and maintenance? I'm talking about skills that exist outside of technologically sophisticated devices. The things you can do when the power goes out. The kind of stuff that used to define real men and women. These are the kind of things that make you truly responsible, without the aid of search engines, Wikipedia, and ChatGPT. The things that ain't you, or more accurately, the things that AI-NT you. Don't misunderstand this. I'm not pretending to be above anyone. I have a job, pay taxes, and support a family. But if asked if I consider myself a responsible adult, my honest answer would have to be yes and no. Like many other modern people, I'm responsible only by the shallowest standards modern living has defined for us. I can do a lot within the paradigm of all the awesome technological blessings I enjoy. Things I've had nothing to do with. Most of us can only be quote-unquote responsible after everything has been provided for us to do so. There are primitive cultures and communities in possession of infinitely more real skills than most anything I could brag about. So if you're responsible in the conditional, narrow way that I am, it might behoove you to admit it, and then show some fucking gratitude. Because before we can get down to action, earnest self-awareness will be the first step.
I can't just sit here and do nothing. That's all I've ever done. That's all anyone on this blasted ship has ever done. Nothing.
On the axiom, you will survive.
I don't want to survive. I want to live. You don't know what pain is.
So we've gotten soft. And it makes sense. I like leisure and distraction as much as the next guy, but only as part of a balanced diet and a balanced life. Beyond eating and watching stuff, I've made sure that my life routinely includes things that are physically strenuous and discomforting. And doing so has allowed me to appreciate and enjoy life's pleasant diversions even more.
That's how I roll.
And I'm talking about things beyond a 9-to-5 job, particularly if it's a comfy desk job. In my younger days, I did my share of hard manual labor, so I have considerably more empathy for those with more demanding jobs than someone like me. I work hard, but what I do isn't hard work. And I say that out of respect for the invisible people that are keeping the lights on. They're not invisible to me, because despite the comforts I've enjoyed, I've long since chosen to see them, if only to put my easy life in proper perspective. There are people doing and maintaining the things that allow us to comfortably complain. Complaints may be justified and are okay in small doses, but they also must be followed up by some kind of personal external action. Otherwise, you'll find that other people's sympathy will burn out rather quickly.
And if you complain once more, you meet them, I'm the other.
But Wally, don't you see that comfort can be dangerous? I mean, you like to be comfortable, and I like to be comfortable too, but comfort can lull you into a dangerous tranquility.
Perhaps one of the biggest transitions from activity to passivity began with the printing press, followed by the radio, TV, the internet, and then the mobilized internet via the smartphone. Each of these things are great, and I'm not suggesting we should part with them, any more than we should part with ice cream for nutritional reasons. Each of the technological leaps represented an easier form of information ingestion. Why do when we can read about it? Why read when we can hear about it? Why hear when we can watch it? And why not watch all the time, even on the toilet? Bowel movements are so boring anyway. And we want quick stimulation and payoffs, all day, every day, and everywhere. It would be one thing if we valued or retained some of the best stuff we're consuming, and then integrated it into ourselves. And our smarter neighbors do just that. But it's hard to shake the feeling that we are increasingly losing the plot of what's important in the face of the sheer volume of things we're confronted with. We have a lot of choices, which right now means a lot of dumb choices. This is not a diatribe against having a lot of choice, but an observation of the paradox of choice as applied to information. Many years ago, I had the pleasure of working with a former English department head from a major university. As I did last week, I'll use a pseudonym. Let's call him Bill. Bill was a razor-sharp, white-haired gentleman, 40 years my senior. I designed and edited his suite of sales materials and had ample opportunity to talk with him on the regular. His passion and command for all matters of knowledge was humbling. He could muse on art and cultural nuggets, and recite poetry and historical events, all by rote. And he was excited to share all of it. And it was never boring because he understood the things he loved well enough to know why it was worth sharing in the first place. Bill was a businessman, sales executive, amateur photographer, poetry buff, author, and publisher of his own literary newsletter. And his focus on knowledge didn't come at the expense of his physical maintenance. In his younger days, he was a state qualifying track and field athlete, an impressive one considering the race times he shared with me. And Bill didn't soften up too much with age. He was, as the best people often are, a high-energy person who was reserved and level-headed. The only kind of person worthy of their vitality. In total, he was impressive. And how many truly impressive people do you run into every day? If you've ever been to a Walmart, you'll know they're grossly outnumbered.
See a propensity for obesity, poverty, a yen for fairy tales. Folks putting what few bucks they do have into little wicker baskets being passed around. I think it's safe to say that nobody here is going to be splitting the atom, Marty.
I bring up Bill because he was old school in all the right ways. A product of simpler, more challenging times. Which might have had something to do with it. Technology had not yet taken up all of their generation's remaining slack, leaving them sufficient tension to remain rugged and retain character. In the absence of ubiquitous automation, people still had to become more of what they needed, mentally and physically. And while I wouldn't trade places, there's a lot to be said for that. And for them. Folks like Bill are packed suitcases. People who are distinguished by the quantity and quality of what they know and can do, but also by what they want and choose to do. These people see life's abundant offerings and explore them for their own sake. They appreciate and want to know the good things so completely that they actively participate in them in some form because they're not just biding the time of their life. They're savoring it because they actually want to be here.
Hank, do you care whether you live or die?
I don't know.
Every action of ours should be a prayer, a sacrament in the world. Do you think we're living like that? Why do you think we're not living like that? I think it's because if we allowed ourselves to see what we do every day, we might just find it too nauseating.
I love this movie and this particular clip. And I agree with this particular premise. If life is best considered as an active process, then the more meaningfully active you are, the more alive you are, or at least feel. After all, what's the difference between mineral, plant, animal, and human? We consider each successive kingdom as more alive based on how active they are or appear to be. Somehow, we view plant life a little lesser than animal life, and animal life less than human life. To fall from an active thinking being to a passive potted plant would by any measure be considered a regression, would it not? And if this is the case, and I think it is, at what point do we limit or refuse to engage, and God forbid, fully integrate with some of this supposedly wonderful, amazing tech that just can't wait to do everything for you? Forget creating and writing. How about just plain old thinking and coming to your own conclusions? Even considering the things we've evolved to do quite capably on our own, at what point do we recognize and decide to no longer cede the diminishing balance of our very being? Again, I ask, do we want to be here or not? Or will we be satisfied with everything, including the husks of ourselves, being animated for us? Because I've got news for you. At some level, every process is an energy expenditure. And you and your earthly life are defined by how you choose to expend your energy. There's a power in that, and I believe it's greater than anything that someone or something else could give you. The more of the decision-making and control you yield to external and internal technology in pursuit of progress and a competitive edge in pursuit of material resources, the less you become yourself. Taken at its extreme, this road slowly transplants everything of value in you with artificial appendages and ultimately leaves you with nothing.
I don't really want to dig through my inbox, so if you send it now, it'll be on top. I'll wait.
Wearable chair.
Sending now.
We all have serious existential questions in front of us, particularly how we're going to engage with these potentially helpful or destructive toys. These are not new questions, but the implications have been upgraded accordingly.
Decisions. Oh, pay me. Lawyer salary, please.
There's a game called Life that's really worth living. You and your family have got to play it. The Game of Life from Milton Bradley.
Sure, AI can do a lot of wonderfully promising things, and I'm no Luddite. But before it approaches the point of doing everything else for us, we should look at ourselves, who we are, and what we are, and boldly ask, are we just eating? And do we want to be here? And more importantly, what's the point of us? Is life about passively processing sensory stimulations? Well, yes, sometimes. It certainly can be. That's part of it. But it's also about making things happen. And they don't have to be big things to feel big and to make you feel more alive. Because if you find yourself always taking breaks, the next thing to break might be you.
Get busy living or get busy dying. That's goddamn right.
If you're listening to this, it means that manually crafted content and independently considered ideas still have the ability to captivate. And there's more down the road than AI slop. Attention is a valuable asset, and I hope what's happening on this channel remains worthy of yours.
Otto, you are relieved of duty.
Thanks for listening.